and welcome to the program. 2018 has been a successful year for the Ukrainian Ministry of Economic Development and Trade. Export of goods grew by 10.3% and services grew by 11.6%. Now, the Export Promotion Office is looking to tap into new potential markets in Turkey, Israel, China, and Africa. To talk more about this and more, we're joined by Olesya Zaluska, Navigator of the project Export Strategy of Ukraine. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting.
So, can we talk a little bit about some of the countries that are attracted by Ukraine's goods and services, and what kind of work the Ukrainian government and your organization as well had to do to attract these investors and promote Ukrainian goods?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I would say that 2017 was successful not like for the ministry, but for the Ukraine overall, since exports traditionally states 50% of Ukrainian GDP. So we are really, like, I would say, dependent on successful ratings in export. And in terms of countries, for the last 2017, we have like 40% with EU. And I would like to stress that the, let's say, structure of goods and services to EU is really added value, innovative, and has potential to growth in this trend. So we are not exporting to EU a raw material only, but also machinery products. And I would even like stress that as a result of the previous year, 50% of Ukrainian machinery goes to EU. It's more than half, so it's 2 billion and 7. The figures are really great, and of course it's let's say like spare parts of machinery and low value added chains, but it's always easily to access the market with the spare parts or like let's say the lowest value-added chains access, and that is Ukraine. That is happened in Ukraine, and in terms of other sectors, EU also leads in food and beverages, and it's also very important that not in agro product but in food and beverages. More than 7 billion goes to EU, and it's a processed food. It's a healthy food. It's like very good Ukrainian quality goods, which are well known in all over the world, not only in EU nowadays. And nevertheless, we let's say lost the biggest traditional market, Russian Federation market, in 2016. The trend of the last 3 years shows that Ukrainian producers were successful in diversification of the geographical dimension. And if we go deeper in EU structure again, in IT services, we also, EU and US are the leaders of like importers of these services. So looking at the trend of the last 3 years, we see not only geographical diversification due to the loss of traditional markets, but also the structural diversification in terms of goods, processed goods with value added, with innovation. And also in trend, the good trend is in services. It's intellectual services, it's IT, and everything that is related also to creative services. We saw the positive trend with audiovisual services.
Oh, that's very, very, very important. So what would you say, which countries are Ukraine's main trading partners at this moment in 2018?
You know that the let's say the 10 top have not changed for the last like many years. It's EU, it's Russia, it's Turkey, China, India, Egypt, Belarus, US, and Moldova. So we see like the well-developed markets where we have free trade agreements. We have traditional markets like China, India. And we have our neighbors like Moldova, Belarus, and Russia, of course, as a traditional market.
So Russia still remains one of the main trading partners?
Still remains, but let's say 3 times less than before.
And that's an improvement? That's a huge step forward for Ukraine, since Ukraine has been trying to become independent of any sort of trade and negotiations with Russia. especially with gas?
In terms of international trade, it's very important not to be dependent on one country. So less than 10% is like the best approach. We still have now 40% to EU, but EU is a union and it's like the exports to different countries, to Poland, Germany, Italy, France. So that's, let's say, like a little bit of a safe side.
Oh, that's good. Well, so you mentioned that it's no longer just about raw materials. It's also about finished products. And how important is that for the country to be able to have that Made in Ukraine logo on different types of products and brands?
The idea, or let's say the vision of Ukrainian export strategy, is to move from raw materials export to processed, value-added, innovative, knowledge-based goods and services. So actually the trend of the last years shows that we are on the right way, and it in line with our export strategy. And one more trend of the export strategy is to show the potential of the sectors which comply with such trends. And these sectors is machinery sector, food and beverages, information communication technologies, creative industries. And one more very interesting sector is maintenance and repairment of aircraft. So
that's right, because I think Antonov Maria is such a huge boost for Ukraine's image abroad. The gigantic plane, I think, boosts that kind of the kind of investment that Ukraine might be looking for.
That's why we, based on our strong sides, looked on the demand from the international markets, and based on some other criteria, defined these sectors as the most perspective for Ukraine, for development of this brand, as you said, Made in Ukraine. And we already have it in all of these sectors. We have it. We have MRIA in aircraft building. We have a lot of leverage in machinery sector. Ukrainian engineers are well known and recognized all over the world. Food and beverages, of course, Ukrainian goods are tasty, good quality, and like no one will argue that Ukraine has a great potential not only in agri-food production. And in terms of new, let's say, brand Made in Ukraine services like IT and creative industries, I mean audiovisual production, of course we still have to do a lot to have Made in Ukraine with let's say, those recognitions that we want to. We don't want to be just an outsourcing country recognized for IT. Right. We want to be known by innovative products in different spheres, and we have a lot of products, not just services, but products based on the strong sides of this sector. I can mention some of them. It's like a Grammarly, right, and Cardiomo, and
yeah, we have, and I believe WhatsApp as well. It was developed by a Taras Shevchenko University graduate. And you mentioned audiovisual presentations. A lot of pop singers and brands are coming to Kiev specifically to film their commercials, their music videos. I'm sure you've seen the Miley Cyrus music video that was
there's traffic jams and everybody knows about it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it seems that everybody could relate to that for sure. So how does Ukraine branch out now? This is what Ukraine has achieved. What's next?
It's just the first steps and first achievements. And export strategy, it's not only about defining the goals and defining the vision. It's also about the plan how to achieve these goals in the best way. What institutions should be established or improved? What markets should be open or which instruments should be used for certain markets. For example, in terms of institutions, you have mentioned Export Promotion Office. It's one of the new institutions for Ukraine. The advisory body, supported by donors, have been working for the last 3 years, and now it's a state institution, and the next year it will have a lot of, it already has a lot of plans for some skills development for exporters, trade missions, exhibitions, and other, let's say, best instruments of export promotion and support. Since many countries, most of the developed countries, has their own institutions on export support and promotion. That's why Ukraine is on the way to improve this servicing function of the state, to support exporters, to show them the new instruments.
Right. So the brand, the imagery, and I think the Export Promotion Office, I think that was one of their main tasks, to put Ukraine on the map.
I would say that it's the task for all the institutions of Ukraine, not only Export Promotion Office, but also the ministries, not only the Ministry of Economy, but also the Ministry of Agrarian Policy, the Ministry of Finance. We all create the image of Ukraine, as well as the business. They should be act in good faith with their counterparties in order to create this positive image of Ukraine.
Yeah, Ukraine has so much to offer in all these different sectors, and it can't be just up to one, ministry or one organization to promote all these
absolutely
all these different spheres. So, just coming back to a bit of the work that you guys do, what would you say are some of the strategy that you guys are working on implementing in strengthening the network that Ukraine already has, and in terms of trade support for Ukraine, and just in general attracting investment for Ukraine?
You're absolutely right. It's not only about exports, it's also about import, about investment attraction, since in international trade everything is related. You should import the raw materials in order to process them and produce something. And Export Strategies project is focused on developing in cooperation with those who will be implementing that or benefiting that strategies, the action plans, and building an ecosystem of exact sectors. For example, in ICT, Information Communication Technologies, or Tech Ukraine, as we now hesitating how to call it and what way to promote, since words are matter, and how we treat it inside Ukraine, and how we would like to develop it, it will be like our image for foreign countries. That's why these processes of developing strategies are very inclusive. We invite all the trade support institutions, associations, clusters, consultants, ministries to sit down and to develop the plan. What should be improved? What should be released? What concrete actions do we need? What exhibitions should be with Ukrainian stands? And what countries we would like to go with trade missions. So it's a very important project in order not to be just tactical and operational, but to be strategic and to be not to be an objective of the international trade, but to be an active player.
That's very important, and I think before any of these major changes, Ukraine wasn't really seen as a game changer in any of these types of industries. Although before, Ukraine was known or branded as the breadbasket of Europe. Now, is that a brand that Ukraine wants to keep, or is that something that you guys are trying to branch out and perhaps maybe find another brand?
Of course, we don't want to be like brains and grains and brains of the Europe. You're absolutely right, and that's why the trend is to focus on more processed, more innovative, more knowledge-based products and services. And we need this really strong cooperation with the trade support institutions and with the business. And this dialogue between the government and the industries should be permanent. And I really like the words that in international trade the most constant thing is changes.
Oh, very interesting.
So
yeah.
That's why we should be very active and look at other markets and always try to find, let's say, new way of entrance to the market, how to release some barriers and how to improve Ukrainian ecosystem for certain goods and services.
So essentially, Ukraine wants to be a change maker on the scene as well. It's no longer wants to be in second place, or Ukraine wants to be an actual participant, one who provides the changes as well.
Ukraine is already, let's say, changer. When we have made this choice for European integration and the DCFTA with European Union came into force, and when we lost our main traditional markets, we made this decision to be an active player and to be a changer and change maker. And what is a good news that Ukrainian companies really actively take the wave and change their approach, and it was really hard since a lot of companies should have been modernized their facilities, let's say upgrade their staff and upgrade their approaches to entering the markets. But it's still it was a positive a push. Nevertheless, it cost a lot of efforts for Ukrainian business.
Well, that's really, really important. I think that's a really nice note to leave it on. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
So we've been joined by Olesya Zaluska, the navigator of the project Export Strategy of Ukraine. You're watching UATV.